In this tutorial, we're going to begin talking about animation, and we're going to approach it from a slightly different area than you might normally think of it. We're going to talk about animation in relation to texture mapping, and that may seem like a silly idea, but you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, we're going to start here in Adobe Premiere. Now, we don't have to go too much into detail about how to use Adobe Premiere at this point. Pretty much what we've done here is put together a brief timeline of sports footage. So if you see down here, this is the timeline. I've cut together some clips of sports footage, and you can see that's basically what it looks like up there. And what I want to do is I want to export this into a form that I can use for a texture map. And so obviously if I just exported a still frame, that would be possible too. But what I want to do is I want to create basically a series of frames. So to do that, this is a timeline where we've put together the clips. So we're going to take all of these clips, and as you can see on the scale here, this is about 24 seconds. So the way you do that in Premiere is you go to File, and you choose Export, and you choose Media. And then you are given this dialog box here. So in this particular case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all choose a format which is set for PNG. Normally if you were working with Premiere, you'd probably be exporting as a video format, but we're deliberately exporting as a still image in a PNG format. And another thing we're doing is under video, and this is kind of important too because this isn't normally checked. You'll notice down here we've got our resolution. This is currently set at standard definition resolution, which for our purposes is okay. You could export it any way you want. I suspect this is what the video originally was, but this little button here is important to check. Export as sequence. That way, if you didn't have that checked, it would export only the frame that the cursor was on. If you have it checked, it will export a frame for every frame of the video, which if we're talking about basically 24 seconds worth, that is going to be many times that. And so then what you want to do is make sure you know where they're going. So right now if we look up here at output name and I click on that, you can see we can put this anywhere. What you have to do, I seriously suggest you do this, is make a new folder for it and call it something like sports _F for frames, and put it in there. And that way the frames will wind up in there, and then you just hit export. Okay, so as you can see, here are the frames. So it's created a numbered frame for each frame of the video in question. And so it starts with frame 000 and 001, and it will go on all the way to frame 769. And as you can see, we've got this video playing here which demonstrates what this looks like. This is the actual movie. This is the actual movie that we're going to use as a texture map. Okay, so if we're back in layout here, we have a nice clean slate to work with. This is the model we're working with. Right now it doesn't have any maps in it. If we go to Surface Editor, we're going to start with the face, and we're going to load into the luminosity that image. So we're going to keep it planar because those are flat objects, and we're going to load an image. And here we are in sports frames, which is where we have those 769 frames. And I'm going to choose the first one, which is 000. And if I'm going to load that in there, you can see there it is. And I can use automatic sizing. And that's the look we're going to get. We're not expecting people to watch the actual video there, but we want them to see movement. And you see if we choose the Z-axis is the one we want to use, that's where you can actually see the image. It'll play like a little television set. And if we were to then look down here, this is the timeline. We haven't talked about this yet. and this controls the animation. So right now, in this particular timeline, there are 500 frames. Now you can set that number if you want to. You can change that to anything you want. And if we gradually move the playhead, you would see change. Now right now you don't. That image is not changing, and there's a good reason for that. Because right now the program doesn't know that we want to load that as an image sequence. And so if you go not to Surface Editor, but Image Editor, you see these are all the images the system has. And currently there's only one. It'll tell you all the details you want to know about it, but one of the important things is the image type is listed as still. I'm going to change that to sequence. Once that happens, wherever the image is used, it will be a sequence. Therefore, when I move the playhead, you will see the image changing. Therefore, this becomes an animation. So then, if we want to continue this, go back to Surface Editor, and let's say in the non-face we want to do what we've been doing before. You put up texture under color, and I'm just going to choose the same sequence, and we did that as this time we're going to do it as spherical, and we're going to put it in the y-axis. And so basically what that's going to do is it's going to play throughout the video. And finally, just to make a point, I'm going to map that into the tower as well. We'll go ahead and put that in. And you can actually see it playing in the tower. For this particular exercise, let's leave it that way to make it very, very clear. So as you move the playhead, the image will move. So what we want to do is demonstrate what this would look like, and to do that we're going to export this not as a frame but as a movie. And so there's actually better ways of doing this. Normally when you export a finished product, you would export it as still frames and then go to Premiere or some other video editing program to make your final movie. In this case, we're just going to export a movie just so we can view it. And so if you go to the Render tab, go to Render Globals, and here we have our settings. 1920 by 1080 is high definition video. That is the industry standard for right now. This is not 4K, but it's not standard def. This is what you would normally want to do. Now we're also going to move over to a couple other tabs here. Under the General tab, you start at frame 1, you go to frame 500. This is going to render 500 frames, one frame at a time. And normally you would use that just as it is. If you wanted to start from a particular frame number, you can do that. And we're also going to go over here to Output, because this is kind of important. Now believe it or not, this is set up in such a way that if you don't set this properly, it simply won't do anything. Now we have a choice here between Save Animation and Save RGB. We're going to save animation at this point, just to get a quick look at it. And we're going to choose AVI. Now one of the reasons why I recommend doing this in Adobe Premiere ultimately is that it's very limited in terms of what this can support. Right now we're just going to use an AVI file, and under Options we can see that there's virtually no codecs that they use. I'm just going to go with Microsoft Video 1, which is one of the oldest codecs known to man, but it will work. And so then finally what you want to do is save the animation file, in which case we're going to call this sports animation. And then when you've done this, all you have to do is hit the F10 button, not the F9 button. The F10 button will then begin making the animation. And it will do that by basically rendering every frame in the animation until it has a completed movie. So as you can see, this is the animation we created. And I'm not going to say it's perfect, it's kind of distracting, and if this were all it would be rather annoying, but we can use this as a component to something larger. Meaning that if we modify this in some way and we include other animations such as camera movement, we can have a logo that has kind of a really jazzy and energetic look. But this, as you can see, has incredible potential. And you can map these into any channel you want, luminance channel, chrominance channel, anything.